Again, not my best day on day before taxes. Okay. All right. No, that's not what I want. Let's start with a PowerPoint. Okay. So let's get this over here. Put you guys over there. Put it in shot. Okay. So we're going to just start with a college example because I haven't seen one yet that was working. So we're going to go over that because I think this kind of gives you an idea of the whole concept of benefit cost analysis and also how to handle these questions, because some of you are not really focusing on the word problems properly, and these are all word problems. This constantly gives students headaches. So here's kind of our questions. You're investing, let me move you over a little more. Okay. It doesn't like it. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and just read the question, because if you read these questions, you can start to assemble the facts you need to assemble your spreadsheets. So you're investing in a college education. The cost would be $12,000 at the beginning of each year for 4 years. You will also give up $30,000 in income at the end of each year because you cannot work. You expect to earn $15,000 more a year for 40 years upon graduation as a result of getting a college education. Notice you're getting paid at the end of the year when you're working and not going to college. So when you start working after college, that $15,000 is going to accrue at the end of the year. So then you get down to these set of questions. And some of you are not exactly understanding how to answer these questions. So let's look at this and start assembling the facts. So you need to set up your spreadsheet. So the first thing you got to figure out is your time frame, because that's kind of the first thing I do is start laying out that horizontal, and some of you are still using vertical layouts, that horizontal set of years. So how many years do we have to account for? Well, you got 4 years of college and 40 years of working, but assuming that you're paid at the end of the year, so instead of setting it up for 44 years, you got to set it up for 45, because at the end of the 44th year, that's really going to be coming in that 45th year. So I put mine out to 45, but if you put yours out to 44, I would not count it wrong. But I had mine going out to 45 because you're getting paid at the end of the year and you're probably not getting a job right away. So I put mine out to 45. It says in the problem that you're wanting 10% as your desired discount rate. So you should create a little information area where you're putting these sorts of information, the discount rate, or you have other data that will go in there. As these get more complicated, you'll have other data that'll go in there. Also, some of you are trying to add and subtract things, so you may also want to put stuff like that in your little information box of your assumptions. So let's remember now what it said for costs. Years 0 to 3, so that would be right away you pay tuition in advance. You don't get to wait. You got to pay that up front. So you're going to pay your first year $12,000 in tuition, or when we have the tuition increase, and we'd be $25,000 a year. And that is an out-of-pocket direct cost. So that's something that most people would recognize because they're looking at what kind of money they got to put out. Now, the next cost is really not a direct cost, because in years 1 to 4, so at the end of year 0, which is essentially the end of year 0 is December 31st, or the end of the academic year, the very next day would be the beginning of year 1. So that $30,000, you could also schedule it at the end of year 0 or at the beginning of year 1, because there's only 1 day difference. So some of you are getting messed up with counting the years and trying to figure out, well, when does this stuff actually occur? In this case, I told you in the problem that it was after the fact. So for year 0, you could have gone to college for a year or you could have worked. But if you go to college, you pay the money up front. And if you work, you don't get paid till the very last day of the year, which is essentially only one day different than the first day of the next year. So again, Excel is very mechanical. So it's just looking when to calculate. And I also want to point out that this is not a hard money cost where you've got to fork over cash. This is in fact one of those cases where economists recognize an opportunity cost. So again, we're trying to measure the difference between the with college option and the without college option. And there's 2 costs of the with college option: tuition and not working. So not working, again, is our first kind of realization that we need to recognize opportunity costs. And I'm going to be really honest, a lot of you seem to think that you can just say 12,000 times 4 plus 30,000 times 4 and have that all act as if it happens in 1 year. If you show me a college that you don't have to pay your tuition at the beginning of the term, I would be shocked. That's not how it goes. You have to pay that tuition every year, and the tuition really then has to be discounted after year 0. Because you could, in fact, work part-time the first year and save money for the next year. So there is this idea that there is a time difference between those. So I think I probably got half the people who handed this in simply just added up the 12,000 times 4 plus the 30,000 times 4 and did not discount it and started in year 4, which is totally against the premise of this class. Every one of those years must be accounted for after year 0. We must discount. So you have to have year 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 separate and discount 1 to 4. Then the benefits. So again, what are we looking at? We're looking at the with college option versus the without college option. So most of you that I looked at had $45,000 a year as the benefit from going to college. But that's a with option, ignoring the without option. If you didn't go to college and you just worked, you'd still make 30,000. So, and it literally said in the problem, which is why I'm going to remind you that I structure these not to be so hard so you can get the mechanics. It says you can expect to earn $15,000 more a year for 40 years upon graduation as a result of getting a college education. So I did the subtracting for you. And so we really need to pay attention because the bulk of you turned in 45,000 for years 5 to 45. And I think a couple even added up the 45,000 across this time, 45 times 40, and tried to argue that that's really what you were giving up. So this is really an example of trying to actually do a setup. And so we have to be very careful and really look at these problems and look at the words that they're putting forth. And I think we're having some interpretation problems. So let's now answer the questions. First question is, are you getting a 10% rate of return on your investment in a college degree? If your net present value is less than 0, then you are not making a 10% return. If it's greater than 0, then you are. If it's equal to 0, then you're just making 10%. So because most of you put 45,000 a year as the net benefit, most of you came up with a positive NPV, which means you were making more than 10%. And then it asks you, what is the net present value of an investment in college? And based on this information, you give them the NPV of that string of discounted benefits from year 0 to year 45 at 10% and add back in that initial $12,000 in tuition in year 0. And that will give you that NPV. and it will be a number. And again, if it's negative, it means you're making less than 10%. The next question, which is kind of meant to be a spelling error. It's meant to be a thought question so you can understand something that is pointed out, and I just read it on a website today about millennials and problems with college. Somehow this idea that college, if you go to a better college, if you pay more for it, will you get a better paying job? You know, what are we really thinking when we're going to college? And this is something I think we are maybe a little misinformed about or questioning, because I have to tell you, I went to college for many, many years, loved it. They had to kick me out, had a hard time adjusting to the idea of getting a job. I did. But I cannot tell you that I took classes that really made me feel like I was job ready or that I was going to get a job. So most of us link college with this idea that we're going to get this great job. And I'm not so sure that's exactly what I personally got out of college. So the question is, if it's less than 10%, should you just not go to college? What should you do? Should you go to college anyway? And my suggestion is this. There's other benefits that you get from going to college that maybe you haven't included in your analysis that make it worthwhile. For me, I never had to pay tuition. And so for me, and there wasn't very many jobs around when I was in college, there wasn't any good jobs. And you really did need a college degree to get what jobs were out there. So for me, because I didn't pay tuition, and I have to tell you, rent was much cheaper and food were much cheaper in those days, I was actually not having a large college bill, and I got a lot of positive benefits from it other than the job idea. What I got was a great social experience. High school wasn't that much fun. I loved college. Everybody was more concerned with things besides popularity and those sorts of things. There was a big range of people. I met some of my closest friends in college. I had a fantastic time in college. I treated it like a job. I would work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and then I would have all sorts of fun on the weekends because college towns were really fun. And I lived in a really fun college town. We got to have spring break and Christmas break, and I loved going to school in the summer because my university, we just went Monday through Thursday. So we had 3-day weekends every weekend in Montana, which was fantastic because there was all sorts of hiking and floating the river and all kinds of fun stuff to do. So for me, I had a great time. I never had a hard time studying. I enjoyed what I was doing. I could do it without too much struggle. So I really had a pretty good time, and I felt like it was really a great experience. So I would have gone even though the return would have been really low. I cannot say that I felt it totally prepared me for a job, but I had a great old time. And so I would definitely recommend going to college, even if you didn't get 10% return. Someone else might have a different experience. Some of you may go to college and be frustrated because you don't understand the relevance. You may not like the teachers. You may be even flunking out. You may feel frustrated. You may not know what you want to be when you grow up. So some people I meet will get in like their 3rd year and then decide they have to change majors, and then they're going to tack on 3 more years. It's something that maybe they're not really seeing it as a benefit. Maybe they're not really accounting for all the costs. So my suggestion here is all we've accounted for here is the money costs and the opportunity cost related to money of sacrificing working. And for some people, maybe they should do like is common in Australia or Europe, where they take a gap year to really get to know themselves. I got to know myself in college, but maybe other people, you know, working might help them hone in a little bit more what they're good at, what they may want to really do with themselves. I think sometimes in college, we're not quite sure what we're learning. I'm sure you've sat in classes and thought to yourself, And so what was this going to do for me when I went to look for a job? This is why in this class, I try to teach you skills that are very valuable. And we get actually tools that we know how to learn to use, because these are things that I think might help you in a job market. I know it's frustrating. I know it's more fun to sit and just talk about one's opinions and not have to have the right answer. But again, we're trying to link it to this idea that college may be an investment. So it's difficult to analyze investments that have a lot of non-market costs and benefits. And I think, of course, another problem is that when in my day, we didn't all have to work as much. Nowadays, college is more expensive relatively, so you have to work more, which I think may also detract from the college experience, because you don't have the time to socialize and hang out like we did, because we didn't have to work as much. So this is kind of the thinking I want you to engage in, because you can't really put everything in dollars and cents. And I really feel like my college experience was just absolutely wonderful. So I would never have given any of it up. However, easy for me to say, I've never paid tuition. I think I paid once $60 in tuition. So, you know, easy for me to say, because I was good at it. I had a good memory. I could read really fast, all this kind of stuff. But if you're not really fitting with it, maybe it would be better to work. You can get ahead working. There's a lot of jobs out there that don't really need a college degree. And a college degree is really becoming cheaper. And also the idea that you pay more for it might be questionable, which leads us to the next question. What's the rate of return if your costs increase? So twice you're asked, what rate are you earning on it? What is your rate of return if costs increase? All you have to do is calculate the IRR. You've already done an NPV. It's one more step. It's very easy to do. IRR is the simplest formula there is, and it will tell you that return. I think when I actually read some evidence, I think the investment in college, as long as you went to a state school and didn't go to a super expensive private school, it was still returning, I don't know, I think last I read something around 7 or 8%. But the reality is, more and more these days, we don't find really that a very expensive college education is going to pay you back in working. And you'll see many people that will have to work 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 years to pay back those student loans, particularly people like doctors and lawyers, which were used to be very high return professions. Lawyers, I think, are not making what they used to. Doctors with malpractice are not making what they're used to. So they are struggling more and more to pay back those horrific college costs. And I think sometimes they wonder. So if you want to know what rate you're earning, just always calculate the IRR. That's what that's for. And then what's the net present value? It's just the NPV of the college investment. So that is the discussion there. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Okay, so now we're going to go to a spreadsheet, because I want to kind of go over some of the errors I'm seeing, because many of you are making the same errors. So we're going to show some of them. Well, we're not going to, I'm going to, where is my, okay, so I made us a spreadsheet to kind of move through some of these examples. And I'm going to blow it up just a little, just a hair. Okay, so again, some of us are still not getting this idea of what's the difference between present value and net present value. So I wanted to do this example. So we see here, we have a stream. We invested nothing year zero, $100, $100, and $100. Okay? So the present value at 6% of this stream, D5 to F5, is $248.69. You are calculating the present value of years 1 to 3. So net present value, when it says that in the formula, is really kind of an inaccurate labeling of what you're calculating. What you're calculating is the present value of the stream. And then if you want net present value, then you got to deal with what happened in year 0. And in this case, what happened in year 0, let me even pull this up a little more. What happened in year 0 was kind of nothing. So you have a bunch of questions on some of your homeworks, particularly homework 1, where it asks you, what's the value of this today? That is a present value, but you're confusing present value with net present value. So present value is this formula right here. And I want to show you, because some of you are misgrabbing your ranges. When you click on the back side of the formula, it will show you, it will highlight what you're linked to. So there's the stream of numbers you're linked to. And if we go down a little bit, you'll see the interest rate. Oh, I didn't link it to the interest rate. I didn't link it to this rate. I used a 10% rate. You can see right there, it's not a hard link to a cell. It is just linked to a number that I put in to the formula. So this will then kind of help you, because some of you are grabbing the wrong thing. You're going to the wrong cell. So I know it's a lot of detail, but this kind of clicking on the back of the formula bar will highlight so that you don't get off on these ranges. It's very easy to go over 1 or under 1. So now let's move to this idea of the NPV. So let's look at the difference. With the NPV, we have got to, again, right here, you notice, oh, I put a hard entry on the interest rate there also. How do I know that? Because there is no cell identification. So this cell right here is year 0. That's the initial investment. And you notice that's not part of the NPV formula. You have to hard enter that yourself. You need to add in year 0. This is what I'm saying. When you look at Excel and it says it's the net present value, this is not accurate. What net present value means to Excel is present value. And some of you are not quite picking up on this. So when you're trying to do homework 1, you get very confused. So this is one of the things that will help you, is this idea that you understand that Excel is kind of not telling the truth when they say that their formula calculates NPV. It does not. It calculates PV of something other than year 0. And then you have to add manually yourself year 0. And some of you are forgetting to do that, which is why I'm bringing this up. And some of you are getting confused, which is the other reason I'm bringing it up. And then to calculate IRR, again, if you click, you can see that it's got the entire string. That's why IRR is so easy. You just put in the whole string. And you will notice up here, we can't do IRR. Let's try and do an IRR for this one. And you will see what happens, because some of you are sending me your stuff with these error messages, right? And you're just like, what's going on? It's giving me an error message. Why is it doing that? Because there's no negative in there, right? So there's nothing in year 0, so it's confused. It doesn't know what to do. I gave it a cell that has nothing in there. So this is very difficult for it to figure out. And also it's looking for that negative, because it's trying to equate with IRR the negatives with the positives. What will make them equal so that the NPV is 0? It cannot do that if there's no negatives in your string. So some of you will be doing things like, oh, I borrowed money and then I paid it back. If you borrowed money, that shows up as a negative, and then when you pay it back, it's a positive. You have to have that positive and negative, or you can't get that IRR or that interest rate. You can use it to calculate interest rates. They're just like IRRs, is whatever makes that thing, the present value and the future value, be equal. The future value of all those benefits will then get discounted. They'll equal the present value of the current investment. But if you don't have a negative, it's not going to be able to calculate IRR. So when you get one of these NUMs, you got a problem. Something's not working. And it's because we don't have anything in this cell and it's looking for a negative number so that it can try to equate the two. So there's that. Let's go down to my next one. Okay, so some of you are not understanding future value. Again, this is years 0, 1, 2, 3. So we want to know how much this $100 is going to be worth in the future. After 3 years, this is what the formula looks like. Actually, I didn't hard enter anything. So the interest rate is 0.01. Let me blow it up. It's very hard to see. Oh, it's not getting any bigger. Huh. It doesn't want to get bigger. So on the future value formula, the first thing is the rate. The second thing is the number of periods. How many periods are you waiting? In this case, you've got 1, 2, 3, 10% interest rate per period. And then it says a minus 100. Now, if I wanted to link this thing to hard cells, I could do this. 1, 2, 3. This is what I recommend doing, is trying to link it as much as possible and not hard type anything. It doesn't matter if you put a 0.1 or a 10%. So let's try it again so you can see what it looks like. So first the rate is in that cell. Then the number of periods, I go to the very last year, 3 periods, hit it. What's the payment? What's the payment? Now, in this case, I'm going to have a problem because this is going to have a negative number on it. So that might throw you, right? What's the PV? I have nothing in year 0. So that would be 0. And you see it's linked. And I think it may give me back a negative number. I'm not sure. No, it does not. So you don't have to worry about those negative signs, but you see it's exactly the same formula, but in this bottom one, I've linked it to the cells, which if you're doing this professionally, it's better because you want to have a legend with all your key facts, because you don't want to restructure the spreadsheet every time one number changes. Then you have to go back in and change all your formulas if you hard enter a number into a formula. This is why Excel lets you just hit a cell and take what is ever in that cell to do all future calculations. This is much easier. Okay, then the inflation thing. We are having a bit of confusion about the rates. So again, I want to remind you that the nominal rate here is really, as I have it here, the sum of the real rate plus the inflation. So if you're given a problem where you're not told the real rate, but you have the nominal rate and inflation, you can figure out the real rate. It's going to be also possible if you have the real rate and the nominal rate to figure out inflation. So if you have 2 of the 3, you can figure out the other 2 simply by the process of solving for the third by knowing the first 2. So that's what you need to do. And then sometimes, like the coal price example, they give you 2 inflation rates and you got to figure that out, which one you want to use. As long as you're consistent, I'll try to be understanding. If you don't pick the one I would pick, I usually take the specialized rate. If I'm working with a coal price and they have an inflation rate for the price of coal, I go with that one. That's just professionally what I do. And then I wanted to show you here, this is kind of the formula, which some of you are having an issue with on this inflation. So here I actually hardwired it to D4. And if you go up here, D4 is 1. So again, that's the formula for it. And don't forget that little asterisk is the multiplication sign, because Sometimes I forget and it tells me my formula is wrong. And then I often will put right here a double parenthesis, but you see it's not necessary because the protocol in Excel is that first thing it does is anything that's raised to an exponent, it will do that first. So it will do this first, although sometimes I will put in both sets of parentheses. So you'll see worksheets from me in two different ways. It doesn't matter, but you see here that Excel will do it. And then when you get to this one, it may be, you notice that I've got the general currency in here. So when, or the general, so it's not rounding, but if you put in currency, it will round it. And so that makes it easier to get an answer that doesn't have to be rounded later. And some of you are having problems because you're not putting in what it is. So again, this has been inflated. So I discount it using the nominal rate. Why is that not? It's not going away. What it should be doing is adding for me. I'll fix it before I post it. This is another problem you'll have. Some of you are sending me stuff and it's like it's broken. Sometimes you just have to retype it. I'm not sure why, but you can see, you can look. So here's the formula for the NPV, all both the same. So that's that one. So now let's go down. I was trying to explain this last time to calculate a payment because you have to do that in homework or in assignment 4, calculating a loan payment. So here's how much I want to borrow, the present value of it. I've got 3 periods in which I'm going to pay it back. Here's the interest rate, and I want to pay the whole thing back. So you can actually go here, and there's the formula. And it will lead me through it. So C35 is the rate. C34 is the number of periods, and C33 is the initial borrowed amount, and I have no future value, it's 0. So it will actually give me information on if I need to make payments, I'm gonna have to pay $155.21 3 different times at an interest rate of 8% to pay back the principal and the interest. And then you can go to the IPMT and the PPMT, which I demonstrated in the last spreadsheet that I uploaded on Tuesday. So you can see how to calculate the interest and the principal on loans, because for businesses, interest is tax deductible. So you got to separate that from the principal, which is not. So when you do your taxes, the taxes the businesses are paying, then you need to worry about that. Okay, so here's another question. I made up some questions. So if you borrow $7,000 with $12,000 to be repaid in 5 years, what interest rate were you paying? Again, you just set it up as an IRR, and some of you still are not able to do this. So you borrowed $7,000 and you paid back $12,000. I think it would also work if you put a positive sign on this and a negative sign on that. It's just going to calculate that interest rate, and we're paying 11.382% on that loan. So it comes back calling it an IRR, but in your mind, what you're asking it is what kind of interest am I paying if I agree to these terms? So that's really what you're agreeing to, is that interest rate. Even though this problem calls it an internal rate of return, the way it's set up is this is what I borrowed, this is what I paid back, what was the interest rate? That is still calculated using an IRR formula. And some of you are struggling with this a little bit. I had several errors on that. Okay, let's go over here. Okay, here's another one that you commonly would do. You got some money from your grandma, you want to save for a car, you can invest at 8%, and you're hoping in 4 years you'll have enough to buy a car. How much will you have? Oh, this is kind of depressing, actually. The future value. So again, it's just a future value. $5,000 you put away, you get your formula, again, I've used the cells to identify because I went down, I went over here and I made this right here. So I can put in the years, how many periods? 4 periods, K48. K48. What's my initial amount? G49, right here. Where's my interest rate? I put it somewhere. There it is. So it will link and show me where everything is. And this is how you kind of proof your work, is clicking on your formulas and seeing if your links go to where you think they do. It's very easy to mess this up. Believe me, I do it all the time. This is our last one. You're saving to buy a condo in 7 years at 5%. How much do you have to save each year to have a $50,000 down in 7 years? So if you want a $50,000 down, the rate is 5%. Again, 7 years, right? So we're doing nothing. You don't have any initial down payment. So you have a 7-year period, and at the end of it, you want $50,000. So you notice what I'm doing when I'm setting up these spreadsheets is just taking the words as they are. 7 years, I want $50,000 in 7 years. And what do I need to know? I need to know how many payments I need to make. So I'm going to use my payment function. Again, I click on it. It shows me my first is the rate. Next is the number of periods, because that's the red one. Number of periods is 7. I have no present value because I started with nothing. And I have my ending value that I want in 7 years. So that's a sizable chunk of change you got to put away every year to have $50,000. Oh, what happened here? It keeps taking away my formulas. Maybe if I just click off of it. Maybe because I'm in share mode, it's not working. But I'm going to post this. I'll get these formulas back in here because you see what it's doing is it's hard entering what I put in there. I'm not sure why that's not working, but I fixed a couple of them. So you guys are also having this problem. So I'm going to stop the share. And now, does anyone have other questions that we need to take care of? Because I don't have anything else planned. For the undergraduates, we are really about ready to go. So we really just need to get you to get these assignments done. So if you're not getting them done, make a date with me and we will sit together and start working on some of them, because I think you're just scared. So I can help you lay them out. You have my examples. You can copy the layouts. Whatever you got to do to just learn how to put it in that Excel and try it out. Because once I work with you, I think after a couple, 3 tries, you'll get it figured out. No. So does anyone have questions?
Yeah, I have a question about using the college one as an example, but just ones like that where the initial investment period is longer than year 0. Is it still just year 0 that you add in at the end of the NPV, or are you doing the whole 4 years that you're adding in at the end and separating that from the others?
You should have already added in years 1, 2, and 3 when you did the PV calculation.
Okay.
You see what I mean? Those should go in as negative numbers in that Excel spreadsheet. So in year 1, you have 2 negative numbers, a minus 12,000 and a minus 30,000. But you also have a minus 12,000 in year 1.
Yeah.
So you're discounting everything from year 1 to year 45. All that is discounted. So the only thing you don't discount is year 0.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
And I think that's what's confusing everyone, is they seeing all these negatives, so they think they have to add them up. But if they don't occur in the same year, if they occur in year 1, Excel gets it. The only thing Excel doesn't get on NPV is year 0. because it wants to discount everything you put in that NPV parenthesis. And there are often investments that take more than 1 year. You're spending for more than 1 year. I mean, look at these forests. This is why forests don't pay. I mean, if it takes you 45 years to, I mean, you can't even get barely a decent koa tree in 45, 50 years. So you're going to have 50 years of negatives. This is why no one really wants to be a forester. It's like, or grow forests. It's very expensive because you could have your whole lifetime, you do nothing but spend money. And then you get a product. This is a major problem. So this is why I think we had to develop carbon markets where you can get some way for those forestry people to generate some revenue. So otherwise those NPVs are so bad. 50 years of no money coming in. You think a college education is bad where you have 4 years with no money coming in and money flowing out. Think of 50 years before money comes in. So that's why no one was investing in forests. This is why we came up with the idea of selling carbon credits, which is mostly going to people growing forests. Otherwise, we won't grow forests. And then we got a problem because what, we don't want forests? I think we want them. But you don't get a lot of benefit for many years. In fact, I just planted some trees here and everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm glad you planted those trees. In 5 years, it's gonna look great. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, 5 years, watering and fertilizing and weeding. You know, so we have to love our trees and they're not gonna come out as good investments unless we understand either some way to get people returns, because the non-market returns are great, but the market returns are terrible. Terrible, except for maybe Christmas tree farms. We don't mind smaller trees when we're having Christmas trees. Any more questions?
I have a couple questions. They're a little bit more specific. And thank you for always all your descriptive explanations on things. They're really exciting sometimes to listen to. Okay, so my first question is on, so assignment 1, the question 1, part 4. I was just wondering if you could just re-clarify to me, because I know that you were making some comments on, I guess one of the formulas was wrong on your part and you changed it for me. So I just want to clarify what that right answer is supposed to be for that part. And yeah, that's all, just to make sure that I did it correctly.
Assignment 1.
Assignment 1, question 1, part 4. There was confusion on whether or not it was
Oh, yes.
percentage or a dollar sign.
I'm not sure. I put it, it's wrong on your paper, but I don't think it was wrong on the lecture.
Okay.
Because when you turned it in, I graded it and then I make suggestions. So let's just talk about that because it's kind of confusing. I actually, in my actual lecture, I wrote the answer, but let's talk about that. Let me just share with you what for those of us who are saying, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? So the first thing is, what's the marginal productivity of the capital investment? It's question 1, part I. It asks for the marginal productivity of the capital investment. So how much capital do you invest? $100. And in 1 year, you made $112, right? So each dollar earned $1.12. Each dollar that you invested earned $1.12, right?
Right. Okay.
But that is not discounted. We didn't do any discounting. We simply just looked at it. And this is very common for investors to say, okay, I put in $1, how much did I earn? And they tend to ignore the time value of money. And so when they ask the question, what's the marginal productivity of the investment? $1 earned $1.12, right? Simple. But then you get to question
the fourth part.
4, where it asks for the project benefit cost ratio. This is a different beast. And I think on just your paper alone, Alexis, I made a mistake because you had both answers I think were not right. And so I gave you the wrong suggestion for I, because I think I told you to discount it, but in I, the marginal productivity, you don't discount the benefits. But in 4, project benefit cost ratio, those total benefits are always discounted. So in that case, what's the discounted total benefits? What does it discount to? The 1.067 is the discounted net benefit. So if you wait a year, you get $1.12. But if you take that $1.12 at a waiting cost of a waiting cost of 5%, then that $1.12 today only generated $1.067 or $1.07. So for that benefit cost ratio, if you see BC ratio, that net benefit on the top, total net benefit is always discounted.
Okay, that actually helped a lot. Thank you.
And the reason why we talk about it is because a lot of people back in the day, before we had all these computers, I mean, like, remember, I didn't have a calculator when I was in college. So often people would talk about it in the business school that I was in a very simple way. Oh, I put out $1, how much did I get back? And they don't account for the time value of money because it's easy, very easy. And they like sooner, better. And they'll have things, you'll encounter pretty soon the word called payback. How long does it take it to pay back? In this case, you got payback in less than a year because you put out $100 and you got $112 by the end of the first year. So that thing had less than a 1-year payback. So that's a very easy way for us to talk about it because everybody thinks the sooner you get your money back, the better. What's the problem with that thinking and why we started doing more discounting? Sooner is not always better. If you want to be sustainable, we are shooting for very long-term investments. If we go for the quick win, we're going to cause a lot of pollution and a lot of social problems. Mm-hmm. I think we've seen it, right? Scalping, class example, quick win, scalping tickets. You know, these quick scamming things, quick returns. Sorry, putting some windows and doors in. This kind of stuff. But that's not what we want. So we really, in this class, want to move to benefit cost ratios and stay away from things like the marginal productivity of the capital investment, because that doesn't really give you an accurate picture. It doesn't talk about time. Does that help?
It does. Yep. Thank you.
Were you an economist, you would be into marginal productivity. And I want to move away from that particular term and get you into the idea of benefit cost ratios where the total benefits are discounted, or net present values, or IRRs, or something that accounts for time value. And you had another question.
Yeah, I have a couple more. For homework 3, question 1.
Homework 3, question 1. I'm pulling them up. That's what I'm doing. Oh yes, you're thinking about your summer.
Yeah, so I just want to know, are you looking for, like, so am I trying to solve like the ratio between what you're sacrificing and what you're gaining? No, or am I just writing out the non-monetary? Okay.
I am trying to get you to kind of think like I talked about with the college example.
Okay. So I'm just
writing a benefit cost analysis. We really want to think about all the benefits and all the costs, but some of them are non-monetary.
Right.
How much fun would it be to spend the summer in Europe or studying abroad? Or did I say you were going to Europe? Oh, how much fun would it be to study abroad? Who thinks it'd be great fun? I'm thinking that would be fantastic opportunity. I would so love to do that. I never did that. We didn't have that when I was in college. And I think we should think about those things and we should put that on our list of positives.
That answers my question. Yeah.
As compared to, let me just say, how much fun is this class? Do we love to sit around and do these spreadsheets compared to studying abroad? Just saying. Not that much fun sometimes. I'm sure you're a little frustrated. but it has other benefits, right? So I'm trying to get you to see that even though we can't assign a monetary cost to it, let's make complete lists and really think about all the pluses and all the minuses. Because the reason why we don't like business is we think that everybody's money centric. So the more we can look at these lists, then you're able to look at all the things and kind of weigh in your mind, here's the money cost, here's the non-money cost. How do they fit together? Or here's the money cost and here's the non-money benefit. Is it worth it? Because I meet so many students that will sit 2 years, they're almost flunking out, don't know what they're doing, super frustrated. And I'm just like, why are you sitting here? If this is not working for you, let's go do something else. But I've already been here 2 years. Well, okay, so you wasted 2 years and you want to talk to me about this? I want to look forward with you and think about how you can have your best and most productive life. And so we really need to think about, for some people, they like their hobbies, but a hobby is never going to be a job that's paying enough to support you. So let's accept that and deal with that. So what I'm trying to get you to, this is a very, very more touchy-feely assignment than I think you're expecting, but this is what we have to do. Look at some of these people that bear huge costs to be social activists, to help the poor. They don't make a lot of money, but so they must be getting something out of it. Or these nurses who go to work being afraid that they might get coronavirus, but still they do it. And what if their children end up without parents as a result? I mean, you got to think that there is some non-monetary benefit for them in doing this. And I think we need to think about all this, because remember, if we try to get people to act more sustainably, we have to understand how they view the benefits and costs, because telling them what to do is not going to do it. We really need to kind of walk in the shoes of every option and understand, what could we be getting out of this? What is the, like, for example, someone who thinks they should be receiving a higher minimum wage because they're going to be working at McDonald's for 35, 40 years. I really want to sit and think, how can we work with them to find something? Surely there's other areas, other things they can do, and I don't want to insult them. I want to help them by understanding how they're viewing the negatives, so I can figure out how to make those negatives look less scary for them. So maybe they can move somewhere else. Like the coal mines in Ohio. Trump, we're going to bring back coal. Well, we all know this is not economically a good idea, or environmentally a good idea, or even socially. But still, these people are sitting there wanting to be coal miners. So we got to figure out how to deal with the cost that they're seeing from moving away from that option and make another option more attractive. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, it does.
It is difficult, and even for yourself. You have to learn how to fish or cut bait a little bit better by understanding, what this is not working for me, but somehow I keep doing it. Or this would really work for me, but somehow I just don't quite want to do that. And I have had students who started out, kind of almost flunking out, and I've convinced them that, let's get with the program here. And I had one young gentleman after 2 years came into my office, was like, I'm a totally new man, because you just taught me that it's not that much harder. If I just work a little bit harder, and I get so happy at getting these good grades and feeling like I've accomplished something, and I'm going to get a master's now. And I never thought when I was a freshman and I had you my first semester that I was going to get anywhere. I was a lost soul. So this is what we want. We want fewer lost souls and more people striving.
I agree.
So I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking for a big list that really showed me that you really thought of all the pluses and all the minuses of studying abroad. And I have to tell you that my son studied abroad, and I counseled him on how to do it to minimize the costs. And his advisor was shocked. And so was my daughter's advisor. I have never met a college student that seems to understand what they're doing more than your than my kids. It's like, yeah, of course, because I'm laying all this out with them in conversation. And this is what I want you to be able to do. You can help people with this, even if it's not in business. You can help people make better choices by walking through these benefit and cost analysis with them and helping them understand why what they're seeing and how we might see it differently.
Great.
One more question? Two more questions? We have time.
I have two more questions. The next one will be quick. So the same homework 3, question number 4, is the payback, am I using the payment formula to solve that? I don't know.
Homework 3?
Yeah, the same homework that we were just on. Oh,
okay.
wait, so wait.
Oh, yes, okay, yes. Question 3?
Wait, hold on,
There's only 3 questions on homework 3.
Yeah, I see that. Question. Oh, that must be homework 4 then.
Homework 4. Let's go to there.
Yeah,
Okay.
homework 4, question 3.
That only has 3, but payback is on question 3.
Yes, that I know. But for this one, for homework 4, question 3, for the payback
so
formula,
you just look at it visually and you say, oh, I spent $3,200. So in year 1, I got $1,600. So I still need another $1,600. So after year 2, you've essentially paid back $3,200 because you're totally ignoring the time.
Okay, I see. I think I see that.
You see that? You're just not even discounting. This is so common for people to talk to me about a payback. So if you spend $3,200, after 2 years, you've paid back $3,200. If you were ignoring the value of time, this would look like, wow, great investment. But you look at number 2, and it takes a lot longer, right? Because $3,200, you don't pay that back until 4 years. So you would have a tendency to pick number 1.
That's right. It's all coming back to me. That was in the previous lecture. You went over that, I think. Okay, and then on the same question, the average rate of return, I'm not really sure how that's different than the rate of return in this context. Is that one
Not
answer?
discounted. So you add up year 1 through year 5. You don't discount. You add them up. So year 1, project E, you have year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. You add them up and divide by 4. That is your average net benefit, and you divide by 3,200. Okay. No discounting again.
That's what I thought it was on that.
Yeah, so this is another thing. When I teach finance, a lot of times we talk about this average rate of return, but this is again, ignoring this time value of money. So what I'm trying to get you to see is that you will come out after, and I'm going to tell you right now, for the record, if you look at this thing, if you look at these things that don't look at the time value of money, E looks very good compared to F. But if you actually do all this discounting, you find out that, oh, maybe F isn't so bad, right? Because we're going to look at this and have a tendency to go for E. Just visually inspecting it, I think a lot of people would go for E. But when you do the NPVs, you will find something else out.
Okay, I have one more question, but I know that we're almost at time.
No, we don't get cut off. Okay. I cut us off.
Didn't know if anybody else had questions. I have one last one that might require a little bit more time. So back to homework 3, on question number 2, I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but I've been staring at this for so long, I don't even know where to start.
You're overthinking it.
Okay.
This is exactly like the question that I did in the lecture. So first thing you do is assemble. Remember what I said? Let's do our project benefit and cost. What are the money benefits and the money costs? So you read the problem. They've already been discounted. So all you got to do is add and subtract. That's all you're doing. It says the project will produce benefits and costs that have a present value of $600 worth of benefits, $6,000 worth of benefits, and $3,500 worth of costs. So what is the net benefit of the project. 6,000 minus 3,500. That's simple.
Okay.
You're just subtracting them.
Okay.
We've already discounted. Doesn't matter what year they came. They're all discounted. So you have 6,000 in benefits, 3,500 in cost. Project returned 2,500. Then you got to come back to the private benefit cost analysis. What was the difference between those two? The firm that did the project has to pay taxes. Right. So they got 3,500 worth of benefits, but then they had to pay taxes. So you have to subtract that $1,000 in taxes from the project benefit of 2,500. So 2,500 minus 1,000 gives you what the private firm takes home.
Oh.
And that private firm is local. So that's a good thing. We need to put that in our memory banks, because when they're not local, they take their profits and go home and they don't keep them in the community. But if they're local, they stay in the community, which matters when we get to the referent analysis. So the efficiency benefit and cost, you again go back to the project benefit and you try to adjust it for the fact that, gee, did we have any non-market costs or benefits that were not accounted for? And we read and we say, oh, we had a $300 pollution charge. We got to pay for that cleanup after this project is over and the company's not paying for it. So it's not efficient until we account for that pollution cost. So we take the $2,500 that the project earned and we subtract that $300 pollution cost, and we end up with an efficiency NPV of 2,200. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot more sense now. Thank you.
And so when you go to the referent group benefit cost, then you just take the project and you adjust it for two things: pollution, which a community has to pay for, and any money that leaves the community, which I said none is leaving. So we just adjust it for the 300, and the efficiency in the referent group are exactly the same. So it's pretty easy. You're just now thinking you have to discount everything like crazy. We already discounted. The purpose of this is to let you see all these different points of view. So when you're going through these problems, you're thinking, oh, taxes. This is why I'm calculating all these taxes. Because if I'm looking at the community, I want to know how much taxes these people are paying and whether or not they're a foreign firm. So all these profits are going to leave and all the community is left with taxes. Or is there a potential for pollution to occur? That's going to be a problem for community. And that's not efficient. We need to have the private operator who wants to come in here and do that project pay for that pollution. That's why I want you to think about it before the project starts on what are the costs and benefits. Anyone else has questions? You know, I think that was very useful, Alexis, because I think people are not coming up with questions because I think some of them haven't started yet. So that's good. Okay. No more questions. We're going to end and I'll get this uploaded.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.